Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. A tremendous performance from Armagh, who have beaten Kildare 2-16 to 8 points, and an absolute hammering, a beating, a humiliation from Kildare right there. They were absolutely battered from pillar to post. This was one-way traffic from the get-go. If this had been a boxing match, it would have had to have been stopped after about 15 to 20 minutes, because Armagh were absolutely brilliant. And look, full credit to Armagh, first of all. They came out of the gates, flying out of traps, and their performance was really, really good. And you know what? Like, one of the big criticisms I've had with Armagh over the last, couple of years and everything else has been, I think Armagh, at the best of times, I don't know how to describe it, but they've been very passive in their play, like handwards, side passing, backwards, all this stuff, passing it from side to side, not really kicking the ball, no kick passing, no variation in how that they play. And last year, I thought they were very predictable and boring with how Armagh played at the best of times. But today was absolutely brilliant. And look, it could be down to the opposition that they're playing. Obviously, playing in Division 2, maybe they don't have to worry as much about what's happening going the other way. But the amount of kick passing, the movement, the sharpness in Armagh's performance was absolutely brilliant. And that was more like Armagh of 2 years ago. Like when Armagh played Dublin, I remember, in Croke Park in that opening game in Division 1. What was it? 2021, actually, I think it was. Armagh were absolutely brilliant that day. I remember 2022. I'm mixing up my years. Armagh were absolutely brilliant that day. And I remember the football they were playing was absolutely to a T. And for whatever reason, last year, completely switched it up. Way overly cautious, keeping the ball for large parts, not getting after teams. But today they did exactly that. Like, that opening 20 minutes was absolutely brilliant from Armagh. And you were watching this game and thinking, genuinely, with how well Armagh are playing here and how poor Kildare are playing, Armagh could end up winning this by 20, 25 points. And genuinely, I think Armagh definitely took their foot off the gas in the second half. There's absolutely no doubt about it. When you looked at the players, a lot of them were smiling, laughing. They knew this game was won at half time, so they didn't need to put out, they didn't need to go full throttle. Obviously, Armagh are going to have a very intense year when you look at the Ulster Championship and everything else. So there's no need for them to go absolute full throttle. But I think if Armagh did go full throttle in this game, I think they could have won this by 20, 25 points. I really do, because they were absolutely brilliant in that first half. Like, really, really well worked goal. Were two really, really well worked goals to begin with. Obviously, Conor Turba getting himself on the score sheet, Rory Grugan getting himself a big, big goal as well. And Armagh just moved the ball absolutely, absolutely brilliantly, like, especially in that opening sort of passage of the game. Oisín Connaughton getting on the score sheet. He was very good. Joe McElroy. I mean, considering when you look at Armagh's starting 15, like, I know a lot of people will say, Kildare have had players opt out of the team this year, and there's issues going on behind the scenes with Kildare. You look at Armagh's starting 15, there's so many players there still to come back. Like, when you look at the starting 15, still have Rian O'Neill to come back into the side. Jardy O'Byrnes obviously came on late on. Still have Jason Duffy to come back. Aidan Nugent came on in the second half, with Jason Duffy obviously came on as well. So, like, there's so many players there for Armagh that still need to come back in the side, and they were absolutely, absolutely brilliant. Even young Keane McConville, I thought, showed a lot of very, very promising moments. Stephen Campbell was very good as well. And just the sharpness, the quickness, the tempo that Armagh played with, I thought was very, very impressive. Now, there are two sides to every story, and I think you can't discuss how brilliant Armagh were with how poor Kildare were. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. I think everybody looked at this and thought, with how well Armagh are playing at the minute, with how well they beat Meath, I think a lot of people looked at this and thought, if Armagh are on it here, like, they could give Kildare a real beating. But I just thought, after everything that's happened with Kildare GAA in the week and everything that's been said about them, I thought there'd be a bit more fight. I thought there'd be a bit more battle here. I thought Kildare would turn it up a little bit. I always fancied Armagh to win the game, but I thought Kildare would put in more of a performance here, and they absolutely didn't. Like, the first half, 4 points. Second half, 4 points. You're looking at their forwards. Only two of their starting forwards scored. That was Dara Kirwan and Alex Byrne. Dara Kirwan, a very good, young, promising player. His shooting boots just weren't at it today. There's probably 1 point maybe he was a little bit unlucky with. Looking at the replay, it was very, very hard to judge. I think in the end, the umpires probably made the right call because if you're in doubt, you can't give the point, can you? You have to give it as a wide. And it was very hard to tell from the angle. It did look like the ball was, I suppose, going over the top of the post, essentially. So I do think it was a wide, in fairness. And yeah, like Kevin Feely, probably the only Kildare player that I think can go home with his head held high. Kevin O'Callaghan made a good block at one stage, but then gets sent off a couple of minutes after that. Niall Kelly looked fairly bright when he came on, but Kildare were just so poor. Like, just so many simple errors, running the ball out over the sideline, over carrying the ball, poor passing. They look like a team that's completely devoid of any confidence. And the worrying part for Kildare is, like, Armagh absolutely blitzed them, in the first half. They're 10, 11 points up after about half an hour. And you were thinking in the second half, like, surely Kildare need to come out, show a bit of grit, show a real kick within their team. Glenn Ryan, I'm sure, would have went absolutely mad at them at half time, and just come out and give a better performance to yourself, narrow that gap down as much as possible. And they didn't do that at all. Like, they kicked the point right at the start of the second half. And then after that, Armagh just kicked back into gear, and they were absolutely comfortable. And as I said before, Armagh had a couple of half goal chances there where they could have worked another goal, but chose to take the point. And it was just so comfortable, so comfortable from an Armagh perspective. And yeah, look, I think Kildare are going down. They absolutely are. Especially with Meath getting that big win versus Louth today. I think that puts a gap now between, you're looking at it and thinking Kildare and Cork are in massive trouble, but in particular Kildare, I still have faith in Cork to turn it around. Cork have only lost narrowly on 2 occasions, but you look at Kildare, like, that score difference is very, very bad at the minute. And I think Kildare are in massive trouble, and a lot of pressure on Glenn Ryan, and rightly so, like, after the performances from Kildare. Like, even one thing I never really understand, I know Daniel Flynn's had a lot of injury issues and everything else, but, like, why doesn't he start for Kildare anymore? I don't really get it. And then you look at, like, Jimmy Hyland, where was he? Like, cause I thought he was fairly impressed. I thought he played well, actually, against Fermanagh a couple of weeks ago, and he's not in the team. It might be an injury, I'm not entirely sure, but again, I thought that was a little bit odd from a Kildare perspective. And yeah, look, like, I've seen on Twitter and everything else, like, a lot of Kildare fans saying Glenn Ryan should go and he should leave now, and and everything else. Like, I don't really like the whole sort of soccer culture in GA of people asking for managers to be sacked and everything else. And I do think at the end of the day, especially for counties, whatever manager you go with at the start of the year, you should stick with. Unless there's a player revolt or something like that, which we've seen in the past, like with Limerick last season, then you obviously do have to get rid of your manager. But one thing I would say about Glenn Ryan is that if he does care about Kildare, he should resign. He should just step away now, because I just don't see it getting any better from here. And I don't think you're going to achieve anything. Like if Glenn Ryan does step down, get a younger manager in, get a manager in. Like, Kildare have done very well at club level over the past few years, at underage level. I'm sure there's coaches and managers there. Obviously, the main one is Davy Burke, and he's obviously with Roscommon, so obviously you're not getting him. I'm sure there's other coaches there, and that could just turn the tide. Because even if Kildare were to go down, there's still a chance somewhat to rectify their season in the Tailteann Cup, bounce straight back up next year. So, like, there's still time to turn this around for Kildare, but it's not looking good. It's not looking good at all. And I think for any Kildare fans, I'd be very curious to hear what you think, because for a side that's had a huge amount of underage success in the last few years, all are the winners at under 20 level last year, the final, got to the final the season before that. None of those players seem to be coming into the team. A few of them here and there, but very, very few of them. And I just think Kildare, like, in terms of how they're set up as well, they were just so poor. Like, just standing off Armagh, allowing them to play their football. Like, it was so comfortable for Armagh. And genuinely watching this game, I was getting flashbacks to Dublin Kildare games in the Leinster Championship, that way. But even at that, I think Armagh could have put, I think in the second half, they didn't even get out of third gear, Armagh. They were so comfortable. And they still played very well, but they didn't force it. And, they probably could have worked more goals and more points if they really wanted to. But I think there was an element of keeping themselves fresh for what's further down the line in terms of Donegal coming up and everything else. So, but yeah, we'll run through some comments here. Dublin v Kerry next Saturday should be a cracker. Absolutely, going to go to it. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. Mikey says Kildare are Division 4 quality. Yeah, I mean, at the level they're playing at right now, I mean, if they were in Division 3, I think that you could argue the case. Maybe they would struggle there. But that's the thing, is that I do still think Kildare have time to turn this around. They do have the underage. Like, Kildare are in a much better position to a lot of other teams in terms of like what's going on behind, like with underage and everything else. And I know a lot of people have been giving Kildare's county board so much stick over the past week or so. But like, really, when you look at it, like maybe I might be like a little bit out of the loop here, but at the same time, Kildare at underage level, under 20 level, things are going very, very well there. In hurling, Kildare is kicking on hugely. Club level in both hurling and football, they're going very well as well. Like, you see a lot of the teams that are coming through, the likes of Nace and everything else, those sides, they're looking very, very good when they're in both football and hurling. So I do think there is good things that's happening, like outside of Kildare's senior football team. I just think this team is very badly mismanaged. I think Glenn Ryan just unfortunately probably isn't cut out to manage this Kildare team anymore, in my opinion. Look, he did all right in his first year, and he had a few good moments here and there. But I do think Kildare probably do need a change or something. And obviously, getting rid of a manager now is probably not the right way to go about it and everything else. It's probably very untasteful, especially on a, former player and everything else. But I do think Kildare need to do something, whether that's change the backroom team or something, because the season is going to become a write-off. And I still think there's time for Kildare to rectify the year ever so slightly in terms of the Tailteann Cup and, even for next season. Because if they don't start fixing things quickly, then they could go backwards even further. Dubs fan says Kildare lost today because Dublin play all their home games in Crow Park. Yeah, look, and it's kind of funny. Like, since Glenn Ryan made those comments, I think Kildare have only won something like 1 or 2 games or something like that. That way, like, they in the group stages last year, what they drew with Roscommon, drew with Sligo, lost to Dublin, then beat Roscommon, and that's been their only win. And yeah, look, I do think there's issues there behind the scenes in terms of the squad. I do think Kildare are still doing a lot of right things, like in terms of underage and everything else. So the future isn't completely a write-off, but they do need to get this sorted out quickly. Otherwise, a lot of those younger players, because that's the worry. Like, a lot of those younger players probably looking at this and thinking, I don't want to be a part of that. And a lot of them could be, going off traveling and everything else. There's maybe not that much of an incentive to play for Kildare's senior football team right now. And that's the worry, that all that great work in terms of winning an under-20 All-Ireland could go down the Swanee. It really, really could. But look, to conclude, Armagh were absolutely brilliant, in fairness, and you do have to give them huge amounts of credit, as I did at the start of the show. Conor Turbot was brilliant, a goal and 5 points, absolutely brilliant performance. But in particular, the younger, like the newer players that have come in, like Oisin Connaughty, Joe McElroy, Keane McConville, I thought all of them were very, very good and very, very impressive. And yeah, Armagh are motoring on very nicely. It's one of them things where they are playing very weaker opposition, which, again, sometimes it can be hard to judge. But in fairness, look, if you look at Dublin last year in Division 2, who went on to obviously win the All-Ireland, but of course, struggled for the large parts in Division 2 in terms of getting over the line. So the fact that Armagh, and this isn't Armagh's best team either, so that's why I think there's a lot of positives. Rian O'Neill to come back in, and you look towards the end of the game, Jason Duffy, Aidan Nugent, Charlie O'Burns, 3 players who are either starting or on the fringes as well, all coming off the bench. So that was very impressive from an Armagh perspective. And look, I think when you're looking at how this division is shaping up, it's looking like Armagh and Donegal are going to cruise through to promotion. That doesn't really seem like, I think Cavan maybe might have a bit of an outside chance, maybe a promotion when you look at how they've started with 2 wins. But even at that, I still think Armagh and Donegal will comfortably seal promotion. And you're looking down the other end. It's looking bleak for both Cork and Kildare at the minute. And yeah, like it'd be mad seeing either one of them in the Tailteann Cup. It really, really will. Two, I suppose, not superpowers in Gaelic football, but two sides who shouldn't be in the Tailteann Cup, like, if we're being honest, in terms of, if we're looking at population, resources, and everything else. Kildare and Cork, should not be in that competition. They should be aspiring for much more. Considering Cork All-Ireland quarter-finalists last year, Kildare were a kick of a ball, essentially, from getting into the quarter-final as well. So, yeah, it's just absolutely mad. I should go outside. So Kildare's basic football skills were so poor today. Forget tactics and anything like that. And A2 says Glenn Ryan, managerial legends. Yeah, their basic skills were very poor, like just over carrying the ball. And there was an image that I saw from Colin Parkinson, who shared it on Twitter. And it was a stage in the second half where, I think the score was 2-12 to 6 points or something like that. Kildare make a substitution, and then straight after, like, the image basically shows every Kildare player, behind the ball, not pressing up on kickouts or anything like that. And in the image, all you see is Armagh players. You don't see one Kildare player in sight, and it's like, what's going on here? You're 12 points down, and there's no like game plan to try to get back into it. It was just it's a little bit bizarre. But look, we will review the games in a lot more detail. I'll be live at 9 o'clock tonight with Matthew Hurley from the Gaelic Statsman podcast. So look, I'm sure he was at the Cork game yesterday, so I'm sure he'll be able to fill us in more detail about Cork in terms of where things went wrong there. And yeah, obviously plenty to discuss. Kerry beating Mayo, Dublin beating Roscommon, Derry are looking, like they are on a one-way ticket towards a league final, and plenty other big results up and down the country. Big wins for the likes of Leitrim, London getting a draw versus Tipperary, Down, very comfortable win versus Antrim, Clare, big win versus Offaly. So yeah, we'll be dissecting all the weekend's games, discussing them in more detail from 9 o'clock tonight. So yeah, make sure you tune in for that. Let me know who you think was man of the match. I think Conor Turbo I would go with, but I think you could pick a handful of Armagh players. Rory Grugan was very good. Oisin Connaughton was very good. A whole host of players really you can look towards. But yeah, Armagh were absolutely brilliant, no shadow of a doubt. So yeah, anyone who's tuned in, hit the like button if you can. Helps the channel out. Would be very much appreciated. And for anyone who hasn't subscribed, if you could, that would be great. Trying to hit 5,000 subscribers, only 400 subs away, so we're not too far away. So yeah, if you could do that, that'd be very much appreciated. And yeah, we'll catch you all at 9 o'clock for those of you who tune in. So yeah, my name's Aaron, and we will speak to you all again.